Today we are conducting a Dynasty value study on Patriots running back Rhamondre Stevenson.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's all caps, Locked On, in the game store. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, how's it going?
Things are good. We had a good conversation yesterday. I'm psyched to dig into this one. I am a big Rhamondre fan. I am super impressed with this guy.
Yeah, I knew you would like this one. It's been a long time coming because Rhamondre Stevenson has had such a good year. His value has been steadily climbing, and in a lot of ways, Matt, I didn't realize how much. I didn't realize how much he was valued in the Dynasty community. I checked out some rankings. I checked out some ADP. We looked at some trades, all of the things that we always do with these Dynasty value studies, and most of the information surprised me a little bit. How high the community and Dynasty managers are on this guy. I know you've been a fan. Before we get into some of that data, some of the numbers, just tell us what it is that you like about him so much.
Yeah, and do you own much stock of him before I do?
I wish I did. I've got him on one or two leagues, but that's
okay.
It.
I have him probably on 2/3 of my leagues because I really loved him coming out. I think he has excellent balance, power, vision, acceleration, big play potential, underrated receiver, especially for somebody his size. I think there's very few negatives with this guy. So I am excited to kind of dig in to see what his current value is. But my hunch is I'm going to be taking the Stevenson side more often than not.
So a couple things that I heard as negatives or potential negatives, concerns when it comes to Stevenson is that narrative that the Bills always use a committee, that Bill Belichick, you can't trust his running back usage, and he's going to surprise you by using the fourth stringer to score a couple touchdowns. And we haven't seen that as much this year. Of course, Damian Harris has been in and out of the lineup, so they've had to rely on Stevenson, maybe even more than they had planned to.
Probably.
But
and Harris is a free agent after this year, I think.
Who's that?
I think Damian Harris is a free agent after this year too.
Well, I looked at the splits because I do think that's kind of the way most people feel, is that Harris has missed so much time, and that's why Stevenson has had such a big year. If you look at his numbers, Stevenson's numbers almost across the board, rushing, receiving, fantasy numbers, are better when Harris is in the game or when Harris is active versus the games that he's missed. I was surprised to see that was not my assumption, but that is the reality. So that makes me, I'm certainly not worried about Damian Harris in general as competition because I think Stevenson is a better all around player. But that kind of makes me not worry about the usage question or concern and really just the way Belichick uses running backs in general. And honestly, we might not have to worry about Belichick anymore anyway, if some of those rumors are to be believed that he could be nearing the end of his career.
Yeah, great point. And is the Patriot way still the Patriot way? I mean, we've seen a lot of things stray from how it used to be up there anyway. My hunch is they came into the season excited about Stevenson, figured to be sort of a split between the two with him taking over more. And then when Harris did get out of the way, they realized he can handle everything and that he's just better and you're going to play him no matter what. I think Harris won't be back next year. And the indicator is they used 2 late picks on running backs and another Harris. And I forget his name off the top of my head. Strong, Pierre Strong.
Yeah, Kevin Harris, Pierre Strong. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not competition at all. I mean, if it's Stevenson and those two in the backfield going forward, sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. Rhamondre Stevenson was the RB 47 as a rookie in 2021, shared that backfield with Damian Harris. This year, he's the RB 9. He has 7 games where he was the RB 10 or higher. So seven times this season to finish as a top 10 running back, which is right up there with the best backs in the league as far as that goes. We see a real discrepancy when you look at his ranking versus his ADP over at DLF. The rankers have him as the RB 21. It's Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, and then Stevenson, followed by Miles Sanders and David Montgomery. And in my personal rankings, Matt, I've got him as the RB 9. So
that's ludicrous behind Dobbins and Kamara and in that neighborhood. I mean, I'll give you Dobbins in a first round pick for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I totally agree. As I said, he's the RB 9 for me. In fact, he's been a little bit of a hot topic behind the scenes at DLF over the past few days, really looking at what are the concerns, and some of the things that I've already mentioned are the concerns. That can we really trust these Patriot running backs? And I mean, at some point, I think we have to, right. At some point, I think we have to let go of those narratives and trust the talent. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but when they had Corey Dillon, they didn't, play a running back by committee. They threw Corey Dillon in there every single snap, and he was one of the best backs in the league.
Lawrence Maroney, Belichick's just going to do what's the best thing. And I think the best thing is Stevenson. What worries me more about the Patriot usage of running back is, does Matt Patricia have any clue what he's doing? And is he just going to ruin the offense?
I think they have.
We already know the answer to that.
Yeah. We do know the answer to that. And I think we're certainly going to see a change next year. I think we have to. But I mentioned the discrepancy. RB21 in the rankings, you look at our December Dynasty ADP, which is, of course, formed from those mock drafts and more of a look at how the community is feeling. And he's the RB10 in that ADP, which is that's kind of more in line of how I'm valuing him, how I think he's being valued in general. Looking at some names there, it's Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, and then Stevenson at 10. He's above Josh Jacobs, above Najee Harris and Mixon and Henry, Pollard, Cook. I don't have any problem with that. That's about where I have him in my rankings as well.
I think I'd have him over every one of those names you mentioned, including Eckler and Swift.
Oh, wow. So you're looking at him as a potential top 5 running back, maybe?
Yeah. I mean,
Nick Chubb is next on that list if we're going up.
Stevenson.
Christian McCaffrey. Travis Etienne.
Ty.
Okay. So yeah, you would have him in that 6-7 range.
Yes.
A little bit higher than me, but I don't think that's out of bounds by any, by any means. Matt, when we come back, we're going to continue the look at Rhamondre Stevenson. We'll talk about some recent trades that have gone down, and we'll get to our Twitter rankings as well.
So, folks, I'm 49 years old, and I would say about 45 of those years, if I could do anything in the world, to be an NFL GM. And our new partner is Ultimate Football GM. Your dream can come true, and you can, this game is definitely for you if you're like me and that interests you a great deal. I mean, the very cool thing about it is you control every aspect of your team, all the strategy of it all, and you have to hire the right coaches as well as coordinators. You get to trade players, which is a blast. You get to make the draft picks, which is awesome. Free agency you deal with, and all the ups and downs of a season and an off season. So all this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline, play on the go as you want and when you want to. So this is what you need to do. Go. All of our Locked On Dynasty listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up at the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Now, I've also told you about Audible in the past. They are great fans here of the Locked On Network. They have a new slate of football podcasts that I bet you're going to love. But the one you really need to check out is Block Forever. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the football conversation to the next level. He gives fans a true insider's look at the game through the eyes of the greatest players and personalities of all time. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. You'll hear people like Christian McCaffrey, Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it's a who's who. So they discuss, topics like a player's psyches, playing through pain, sports betting, being a leader of the team, how to deal with combative teammates. There really is nothing out of bounds. So available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch the full Block Forever series available anywhere you get your podcasts, available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Matt, we're talking about Rhamondre Stevenson, conducting a dynasty value study on him. And we agree already he's being undervalued, it seems. Whether you're looking at rankings, ADP, let's see what the trades have to say, though. These are some recent trades. We use the Dynasty Trade Finder from Dynasty League Football. Go check that out. Great tool to really get a grasp on players' value, because, we can look at rankings and you can question or argue with those, and you can do the same thing with ADP. But value ultimately lies in that those trades that are actually happening.
Sure. What are you willing to give up? How much? Put your money where your mouth is.
Are you willing to give up Deebo Samuel? Because here's the first trade: Stevenson for Deebo, 1-for-1, even up. This did happen after the Deebo Samuel injury.
Yes, he is injured. There's a lot of mouths to feed. Are they going to throw the ball a ton when Lance takes over? Stevenson.
What about Stevenson for Aaron Jones and Jerick McKinnon? We talked about McKinnon last week. Some have called him a league winner this year. I think Stevenson could be a league winner this year as well.
Stevenson.
I don't think that one's close.
No, I really don't. Right.
Not close. I like McKinnon for the rest of the season. But Stevenson
has value. But
Stevenson versus Jones is not a question, not even close. And McKinnon's not enough to move the needle. Stevenson for David Njoku and 2 second-round rookie picks. We like that second round. Pretty excited to see the types of players we could get there. I don't think that's enough, though, for Stevenson.
Njoku is one of my crushes, but Rhamondre is really one of my crushes, and I still want Stevenson. That's not enough.
Yeah.
How about Njoku in a 1? No, I still wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. A couple more here. And we're getting up into that first round range when it comes to trade value. Stevenson for Dameon Pierce, a first rounder and a third rounder. So Pierce plus a first for Stevenson.
Best one yet, but Stevenson.
I'm Stevenson here as well. As we always say, we don't know exactly where that pick is. I'm assuming it's late, because that's a solid trade. That feels pretty fair in general. I definitely want Stevenson over Pierce.
If it was a top 5 pick, I think it's a different conversation. But
right. I agree. Yeah. I agree. Last one, Stevenson. You get a first, a second, and a fourth. This is one of my favorite moves. I like to offer my entire draft.
Yeah.
I'll give you the first, second, third, and fourth for that player I want. It looks like a lot more than it is. I'm still taking Stevenson here.
Oh, me too. I mean, I'd rather have Pierce a first and a third than a first, a second, and a fourth. So,
right.
Stevenson sweeps it for me. 5 out of 5.
I knew you liked him more than I did, so I didn't know if we'd have any disagreement on those trades. But yeah, the trades, the ranking, the ADP, everything is telling us this is a guy we need to go out and acquire.
Get him.
And I know a lot of dynasty leagues, the trade deadline has passed. If you don't have a trade deadline in your league, or in some leagues, maybe it's already even open for the next season as teams fall out of the dynasty playoffs. If you've got a way to go out and make that trade offer for Rhamondre Stevenson, I would be doing that based on these trades that we've seen.
Offer your whole draft. Do the McDowell move. I like it.
What about, and I know you're not totally diving in on this rookie class yet, but if you're trying to nail down his exact pick value, 101 is Bijan. We're not giving the 101 for him.
No.
We've got some nice wide receivers that we expect to be early first round dynasty rookie picks. We're talking Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnston. Those are the first three that come to mind. And then, Jahmyr Gibbs is presumably the RB2. Is it kind of those five? And then you're talking Stevenson, maybe as high as 6, if you're looking for that exact pick value.
I think I don't know enough about that class, but I do know that there is not a Jamar Chase or a Waddle in that group, at least as prospects. And maybe there's not even a top 10 pick at the wide receiver position. I tend to think I'd rather have Rhamondre than any of the receivers in this draft. And I would have to know a little bit more about running back 2 and 3. So I think if I could trade 1.5 for him right now, I think I would.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. And I think that's, probably reasonable.
Yeah. He's still young. He's playing great.
Matt, when we come back, we will look at those Twitter polls that we have turned into rankings. We'll see where Rhamondre Stevenson lands in comparison to some of the other best running backs in the league.
So I'll tell you guys a little bit about Total Wine and More this holiday season. Obviously, it's a perfect time of year to look into this. This holiday, you can find what you love at Total Wine and More. The Williamson family has a big order in that should be here soon. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon or the perfect gifts for anyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide. Very easy to navigate as well. And all with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Love what you find. Only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Please drink responsibly and be 21.
Matt, let's finish up our Rhamondre Stevenson conversation and value study with the Twitter polls that we always do. If you've missed these, basically we create a series of Twitter polls pitting the player that we're focused on. That's Rhamondre Stevenson this week versus several other players typically at that same position. So it's Stevenson versus several other running backs in head-to-head Twitter polls. We use the results from that to create a set of rankings. It's a very scientific process. No way you can find any holes in this, Matt. This is perfect. This is their dynasty value. Lock it in. Breece Hall is the RB1 in Dynasty, according to the series of polls. I will say I didn't include the rookie Bijan Robinson. Maybe I should have, because he did officially declare for the NFL draft. So he's in case you're worried about that.
That Bijan is probably 1?
I think he's going to be the RB1.
Yeah.
But if it's not him, it's Breece Hall. Again, at least based on these polls, Breece Hall got 84% of the vote compared to Stevenson. Close behind him was Jonathan Taylor with 82%. This was post-injury, so factoring that in, knowing that his season is essentially done, or it is done now. Do you still value? Well, first of all, are you good with Hall back among the top of the running back list?
I am. I am
as well.
I'm not enamored with the top of the list as a whole. I mean, I usually like somebody better than this, but I am very fine with it. I think the Jets are a good spot for him as well.
And if you're doing a startup draft, the die hardest of die hard on Christmas Day, Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it sure is.
Perfect. If you're doing a startup dynasty draft on Christmas Day, are you taking Breece Hall over Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am as well.
Less certainty around the organization in Indy.
Yeah. All right. So Hall gets 84%, Taylor 82%. Christian McCaffrey gets 78% of the vote. I'm not surprised McCaffrey was chosen ahead of Stevenson. I was a little surprised the gap was so large, but it's hard to argue with the production that we're seeing from him. And you have to assume that's just going to continue into next year there in San Francisco.
So. Yeah.
Kenneth Walker, 75% of the vote. You kind of hinted on at this a couple weeks ago that you were ready to flip Hall and Walker because most rankings we see still had Walker above Hall. The ADP that we recently reviewed had Walker above Hall. You questioned that, and now the community seems to agree with you, and I agree with you as well. It's Hall over Walker. And I was, again, surprised Walker got such a large percentage of the vote here.
Yeah, he's very impressive, though, with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's one of the few that I would take over Stevenson right now.
Saquon Barkley close behind Walker. He gets 72% of the vote, so easily chosen ahead of Rhamondre Stevenson. I don't think you probably don't have any questions or concerns about that one. What about this last one, though, Matt? This is the last player
I just
chosen.
don't know how long Barkley's going to do it for, but okay. I mean, I still take him over Stevenson, but I don't want to be super invested in Barkley.
That's fair. Last player chosen ahead of Stevenson. You called it a tie earlier in the episode. Travis Etienne, 60% of the vote compared to Stevenson. I thought Stevenson might win this one, honestly.
I can see
that. I think overall this has been a disappointing season for Travis Etienne. Maybe that's not fair given that he was coming off the injury and it's essentially his rookie season. And he's had some huge games, but I don't know. He just certainly has not been consistent for the Jaguars. And it really feels like they're going to bring in some type of competition for him.
Yeah. The more I think about that from 20 minutes ago when we had that conversation, I bet Stevenson scores more touchdowns in the next 5 years than Etienne and gets more touches. So I think I'll take him over Etienne.
Let's move on to the players that Rhamondre Stevenson was chosen ahead of in these polls. See if you have any concerns or questions about those, Matt. Josh Jacobs is the top guy on the list, 44%. So relatively close. Jacobs has certainly had a huge year. He's a top 3 running back on the season, going to be a free agent, still relatively young, considering he's been in the league for 3 years now, I believe. Stevenson over Jacobs?
Yeah, but
yeah,
I mean, you make good points about Jacobs, but I'll take those extra years.
Nick Chubb also got 44%. You already chose Stevenson over Chubb. I agree with that. It's the same old story. We're limited by lack of pass catching upside here with Nick Chubb.
Right. And maybe Hunt's out of the equation and maybe that goes up a little, but it's not going to spike and go crazy.
DeAndre Swift has lost so much dynasty value this season.
He makes me crazy. Yeah.
42%. I'm kind of surprised it was even that high. I want Stevenson for sure. And Nick Swift he's going to be a tough talk about case study. He's going to be a tough case study this offseason. I think his value probably bounces back and we get caught up in that upside and the hype again, but I'm going to try to avoid that personally.
He's just so frustrating and inconsistent with usage and injuries and all the above.
And his team doesn't trust him.
It's pretty clear. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the bottom line. Last couple guys who were far down the list here, not all that close based on the vote percentages to Stevenson. Joe Mixon gets 26% and Derrick Henry last on the list. What a slap in the face to this guy. 23%. It's got to be all about his age because he's producing once again like the beast running back that he is. I get it with the age, but as I said,
wear and tear.
I understand, but
you're right.
If he's on the field, I want him. I'm taking Stevenson over him just because of the age gap, but I think I'd take Henry over Mixon, over Chubb.
Definitely over Mixon.
I kind of thought he should be higher on this list.
Mixon and Henry came in the league the same year.
don't think so.
You're right about that. That's not true.
Mixon was in that 2017 class.
Yeah,
I think they probably came to relevance about the same time because Henry had to sit behind Murray there for a couple of years. Maybe that's helping him now as he gets near that age 30 year and giving him a little more wear on the tires still. That will do it for today's episode of Locked On Dynasty. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the Locked On Dynasty channel on YouTube, and remember to follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. I'm Ryan, MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.